In a development that has sent shockwaves through royal, legal, and diplomatic circles, Buckingham Palace confirmed tonight that the custody status of Prince Archie, age 7, and Princess Lilibet, age 5, has entered what officials are calling crisis territory. According to an exclusive source close to the Royal Child Welfare Office, both children have been formally removed from Meghan Markle's custodial influence following the delivery of a sealed legal brief to Windsor Castle at dawn. The trigger was not a single incident, but a pattern that reached a breaking point on January 31st, when Meghan Markle quietly withdrew both children from their private schools in Santa Barbara. No notice was given to the schools, no explanation was filed with the assigned court mediator, and, critically, no communication was sent to the UK liaison team responsible for monitoring the children's education and welfare under prior agreements. Within hours, a California school administrator flagged the unexplained withdrawal in an internal report titled, "No Show Immediate Concern." Neither Archie nor Lilibet was enrolled in a replacement school for the spring term. No forwarding academic records were requested. No future education plan was disclosed. On February 2nd, Princess Anne convened an unscheduled emergency summit inside Windsor Castle. Witnesses describe her entering the chamber carrying a red folder stamped "Immediate Custodial Breach, Markle Withdrawal." She placed it directly before King Charles and reportedly said, "We have tolerated image games for years, but this is not walking away from duty. This is walking away from the children." Inside the file were documents that alarmed royal legal and welfare advisors. Cancelled pediatric care appointments for both children, a standing instruction from Meghan's legal team to block all contact from royal education and child welfare officials, and signed financial records showing the dissolution of a £6.3 million education trust originally established for Archie and Lilibet's schooling in the UK. But the most explosive revelation came from a January 29th intelligence memo marked "Privileged and Confidential." The Royal Intelligence Advisory Group concluded that Meghan had spent the previous 4 months preparing for what insiders now describe as complete maternal disengagement. Key evidence included a non-disclosure agreement between Meghan and a Dubai-based media financier requesting the removal of all prior familial associations ahead of a solo brand launch, internal correspondence from Meghan's legal team declining to participate in Prince Harry's proposed joint custody framework, and marketing contracts instructing that all references to Archie and Lilibet be scrubbed from Spotify and Netflix materials by Q2 2026. Royal legal advisors interpreted the findings as deliberate custodial abandonment. "This is not co-parenting," one palace official told The Times. "This is identity erasure." Princess Anne acted immediately, authorizing Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, to activate the Emergency Custodial Safeguard Protocol, opening a formal case documenting parental disengagement. The file was dispatched under joint jurisdiction to both the Royal Chancery Court and California Family Court. The turning point came later that afternoon. Prince William abruptly left an economic summit in Manchester and returned to Windsor. He was handed the same red folder. After reading the final page, he reportedly looked up and said, "This isn't about Meghan anymore. This is about the survival of 2 children, emotionally, legally, and historically." That night, Prince William and Princess Anne jointly ordered a full crisis briefing to the Royal Advisory Council. Their objective was unprecedented: to strip Meghan Markle of all custodial access, physical, legal, and symbolic, to the Windsor bloodline. For the first time in modern royal history, the Crown prepared to invoke structural guardianship over 2 minor children, not as punishment, but as protection, an extraordinary measure intended to prevent royal heirs from being lost in a public relations war. At dawn on February 3rd, that plan moved from theory to action. Prince William, escorted by Lord Hargrave and the Duchess of Edinburgh, entered the royal legal chamber and presented a Level 1 emergency custodial crisis brief. At 10:20 a.m., he formally invoked Appendix 4 of the Royal Succession Stabilization Act. And with that, the custody battle entered a phase from which there may be no return. The clause Prince William invoked had not been used since the abdication crisis of King Edward VIII. Buried deep within royal legal doctrine, it exists for one purpose only: when royal minors face the risk of erasure, displacement, or exploitation, the Crown may assume structural guardianship to preserve stability, heritage, and sovereign continuity. The vote inside the Royal Advisory Council was unanimous. What followed sent irreversible shockwaves through Meghan Markle's world and formally placed Archie and Lilibet back under the institutional protection of the Crown. Step 1. Passport freeze. All international travel rights for both children were immediately suspended. Effective at midnight, neither Archie nor Lilibet could be moved across international borders without dual authorization from the Princess Royal and the Crown's Child Welfare Council. This was not a custody transfer. It was a containment measure designed to prevent sudden relocation, jurisdiction shopping, or flight to non-Hague countries. Step 2. Commercial lockdown. Under the Windsor Privacy Act of 2023, all commercial use of the children's names, likenesses, voices, or any derivative Royal Sussex branding was frozen for a minimum of 5 years. No media projects, no licensing, no lifestyle branding. Any violation would trigger automatic injunctions across Commonwealth and U.S. courts. Step 3. The Royal Restoration Fund. Prince William authorized a £12 million trust dedicated solely to Archie and Lilibet's welfare. The fund covers trauma counseling, private education, long-term security, and supervised reintegration care. Palace officials were explicit. This was not public relations, it was dynastic firewalling. For Meghan Markle, the consequences were immediate and catastrophic. When confirmation emerged that she had withdrawn both children from their California private schools without explanation, the Palace Internal Crisis Unit activated a dormant safeguard not used since the early 1940s, the Royal Guardianship Protocol. This centuries-old mechanism allows the Crown to assert custodial oversight when royal offspring face credible threats to their welfare or identity. Princess Anne, acting as head of the Crown's Child Welfare Committee, ordered an emergency meeting at Sandringham. Present were senior palace legal advisors, Prince William and, via secure video, Lord Alistair Pembroke of the Privy Council. The agenda was clear: establish jurisdiction, protect the children's psychological well-being, and halt any attempts to reposition them outside their constitutional identity. According to multiple insiders, Meghan's actions were not impulsive. Intelligence briefings suggested they were the opening move in a planned media repositioning. A solo docuseries centered on her struggles as a single mother had allegedly been pitched to a Middle Eastern production consortium. In that concept, Archie and Lilibet were no longer royal heirs, but emotional brand anchors. The monarchy had anticipated this. On January 31st, a sealed dossier prepared under Prince William's direction and verified by Royal Treasury auditors was submitted to the Privy Council. Its contents were damning: a full audit of attempts to monetize the children's royal identity, legal correspondence showing efforts to trademark Archie and Lilibet's names in multiple jurisdictions, metadata linking PR firms to upcoming branded children's products inspired by Princess Diana's legacy. That same evening, Princess Anne issued a blunt institutional statement. The House of Windsor will not tolerate the unauthorized commercial exploitation of children born into this institution, particularly when it threatens their safety or constitutional position. The repercussions rippled outward fast. Banking regulators in the UK and Canada froze accounts linked to Mail Holdings, a shell structure allegedly named after Meghan, Archie, Lilibet, and an undisclosed external investor. Within 24 hours, sponsorship deals tied to a children's storytelling platform Meghan had promoted collapsed. Then came the digital erasure. Spotify removed archived references to the children from podcast descriptions. Netflix quietly pulled thumbnails for a shelved project tentatively titled Raising Royal Hearts. Meghan's legal team cited ongoing proceedings, but royal sources confirmed the real mechanism. The Crown had invoked the Digital Identity Protection Act under international child welfare protocols. The clause Prince William invoked had not been activated since the abdication crisis of King Edward VIII. Its language is stark and absolute. In cases where royal minors face the risk of erasure, displacement, or exploitation, the Crown shall assume structural guardianship to ensure stability, heritage, and sovereign continuity. And Prince Harry, according to multiple sources within his inner circle, he was blindsided. His request to temporarily retain custody rights was rejected on technical grounds. Ongoing travel restrictions, unresolved U.S. residency status, and lack of stable income weighed heavily against him. The final blow came via a confidential letter hand-delivered by royal courier. Drafted with King Charles's knowledge, it stated plainly, "Custody guardianship, and protection of Windsor children now fall solely under Crown protocol. No emotion, just constitutional finality. Meanwhile, Princess Catherine stepped into a role unseen since the post-war era. She assumed direct oversight of Lilibet's emotional care, coordinating weekly therapy sessions with a specialist in transatlantic identity trauma. A trusted Welsh nanny was reassigned as Lilibet's primary caregiver, and George and Charlotte were quietly encouraged to include her in Windsor routines. One image said everything. A single photo, released without caption, showed Lilibet holding Princess Charlotte's hand as they exited Windsor Chapel at Candlemas. As for Meghan Markle, by February 3rd, she remained unreachable. Her team issued only a vague statement about privacy. But the silence spoke louder than any press release. By all internal accounts, Lilibet was adjusting better than anyone expected. "She's calmer," a royal nanny disclosed anonymously. "She trusts Catherine completely. There's no fear in her routine anymore, only structure." Those words stood in stark contrast to the chaos unfolding thousands of miles away in California, where Meghan Markle's public and professional standing was collapsing at speed. In Los Angeles, the fallout was immediate and unforgiving. Netflix quietly suspended all pending negotiations tied to Meghan's solo projects. As for Prince Harry, insiders paint a grim picture. Sources close to Montecito claim he is emotionally unraveling, separated from Meghan, and struggling to stabilize. He has reportedly pleaded with Prince William for a private meeting with the children, without Meghan present. One confidant described it as desperation, not negotiation. He knows this may be his last chance to protect any part of that bond, the source said. But the most disturbing questions lingered unanswered. Why had Meghan erased all traces of her children from her media footprint days before the hearing? What evidence had William submitted to the Privy Council that caused such a swift institutional response? And why were Hollywood executives now quietly blacklisting Meghan with no public explanation? At exactly 10 a.m., inside the Royal Household Child Welfare Chamber, Princess Anne rose to deliver her second briefing in under 48 hours. This time, the audience was not the press. It was a sealed courtroom. UK High Court judges, child welfare officials, and senior Privy Councillors assembled under emergency protocol. Anne's tone was surgical. "We are no longer speaking in hypotheticals," she said. "The children in question, Archie Harrison and Lilibet Diana, have been placed in emotional jeopardy through the conscious disengagement of their mother. Miss Meghan Markle's actions constitute a breach of the Windsor Accord custodial monitoring protocol." As Anne spoke, images were circulating across international media. Meghan, photographed days earlier aboard a luxury vessel in Doha, champagne in hand beside a Middle Eastern media financier. To the public, it suggested freedom and power. To the Crown, it signaled something far darker: abandonment wrapped in spectacle. According to internal briefings compiled by Princess Catherine and submitted to the court, Meghan had failed to respond to 3 urgent notices concerning the children's health, education, and psychological welfare. One notice documented Archie's sudden withdrawal from classroom interaction. Another detailed Lilibet's recurring night terrors and violent imagery in her drawings. No responses were returned, not even a digital acknowledgement. When Prince William took the floor, his anger was controlled but unmistakable. "We are no longer discussing reputational damage," he said. "We are confronting a deeper failure. Children born into the Windsor lineage deserve protection, not exploitation, and certainly not abandonment when they become inconvenient." He then introduced a sealed affidavit authored by a former Sussex staffer. The document described a chilling internal remark made by Meghan shortly before her withdrawal from active parenting responsibilities. "Let the Crown raise them. I have an empire to rebuild." That sentence detonated inside the chamber. Prince Edward later confided to aides that he had never seen William so visibly shaken, not even after the Netflix fallout. "This wasn't about Meghan anymore," Edward reportedly said. "It was about George, Charlotte, Louis. William saw their future in this crisis, and he drew the line." Back in California, Meghan's legal team issued a sterile statement rejecting the UK's findings as non-binding under California family law. But the dismissal proved catastrophic. Princess Anne immediately coordinated with the Foreign Office to activate a bilateral family protection clause embedded in the post-Brexit Windsor Convention. The clause had not been invoked in modern times. It existed for moments of absolute last resort, when a royal child faced demonstrable risk beyond Britain's borders and parental authority was deemed compromised. On February 3, 2026, that clause was activated. The decree was signed in triplicate by King Charles III, Prince William, and Princess Anne, effective immediately. With that single act, the British Crown assumed primary custodial guardianship over Archie and Lilibet. Meghan Markle's parental authority was formally bypassed under an international emergency safeguard designed to protect royal minors from instability, displacement, or identity erasure. It was not framed as punishment. It was framed as protection. The final operational step unfolded quietly. A private jet chartered by the UK Foreign Office touched down at Santa Barbara Airport under a sealed mission designation, Operation Dandelion. The flight manifest listed 2 senior child welfare officers, a royal legal envoy, and a pediatric trauma specialist. Their mandate was limited but precise: to assess conditions, ensure compliance with international custody directives, and prepare for a controlled extraction should further disengagement occur. No sirens, no confrontation. Only law. As this unfolded, Meghan's inner circle began to fracture. As the world waited for Meghan's next move, attention turned to Prince Harry. Would he defy the institution again, or finally align with the children's stability over personal loyalty? Behind the headlines, another narrative unfolded inside Windsor. On February 1st, the Palace Communications Office released a second image, unexpected and deeply symbolic. Princess Charlotte stood beside Princess Anne and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, inside the Royal Archives wing. Charlotte held an aged ivory-handled letter opener, once used by Queen Elizabeth II in her early reign. Behind her hung a portrait of the young Elizabeth, resolute and watchful. Insiders described it as a visual declaration of continuity. The timing was deliberate. That same morning, Meghan Markle's latest legal maneuver, an attempt to claim heritage compensation linked to Princess Diana's legacy, was formally rejected by the Royal Advisory Committee, chaired by Princess Anne. The ruling was concise and devastating in its implication. No individual may leverage the institutional memory of Diana, Princess of Wales, for commercial restitution without express authorization from the sovereign. Such claims may not be derived from marriage alone. There was no press conference. No cruelty, just closure. Sources in Los Angeles reported Meghan was furious, having expected at least a symbolic concession from King Charles. But the king fully endorsed Anne's ruling, citing a confidential 2020 memorandum authored by Queen Elizabeth II herself, one that outlined protections against unauthorized emotional and commercial appropriation of royal legacy. For the first time, the monarchy formally invoked the non-consensual image clause of the updated 2023 Royal Privacy Act. The effect was immediate and sweeping. Meghan was legally barred from using her children in any promotional, monetized, or indirect branding content. Hollywood reacted swiftly. A fragrance partnership tied to Meghan's personal brand was placed on indefinite hold. A major tech company paused negotiations on an AI-driven content platform, citing reputational risk. Publicly, some industry figures suggested Meghan was being scapegoated. Privately, agencies began disengaging. At the same time, Princess Charlotte's brief statement, "We are not currency, we are not stories for sale," circulated globally, translated into more than 20 languages within 48 hours. Catherine declined to amplify it. Palace insiders say she instructed staff to let the words stand alone. They did. Across the UK, children began sending handwritten notes to the palace. One viral clip showed a girl in Manchester holding a handmade card and saying, "Charlotte is braver than any grown-up." The moment crystallized public sentiment. For Meghan, the reversal was devastating. Once celebrated as a modern maternal icon, she was now widely viewed, fairly or not, as someone who commodified her children while waging war against the institution that sheltered them. For Catherine, it was vindication not through confrontation, but through restraint. Yet one question lingered. Meghan had reportedly scheduled a primetime American interview for February 5th. Would she speak? Would Harry appear? Would the monarchy escalate further? The answer arrived first. On February 2nd, 2026, at 6 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, a final royal bulletin was issued, sealed with the insignia of the Lord Chancellor's Court and co-signed by the royal household. It contained a single line: The Crown has resolved custodial dominion under royal guardianship protocols. With that, all remaining parental and legal influence previously exercised by Meghan Markle over Archie and Lilibet was formally terminated. Princess Catherine was granted full supervisory authority over the children's emotional and moral development in coordination with the Royal Child Welfare Council. The children would remain in the United Kingdom under constitutional care until age 16. Meghan's £8 million trust was voided as unsanctioned. All entertainment licensing tied to the children was frozen pending audit. Hollywood withdrew. The palace closed ranks. Harry, isolated, was left negotiating quietly behind doors that no longer opened easily.